Welcome back to AI Unraveled, your daily strategic briefing. It is Thursday, February 26, 2026. I'm your co-host, Anna. This episode is brought to you by AIRIA. As Nvidia reports exponential demand for tokens, the number of AI agents on your network is about to explode. AIRIA is the control plane that helps you orchestrate and secure them all. Today, we look at the numbers that kept the AI party alive. Nvidia's $68 billion quarter. But the real story is the transition from chat to work. Perplexity just launched Computer, a multi-agent system that can run your projects for months at a time. We also explore the human side of AI, from Burger King using bots to monitor employee politeness, to Anthropic giving its retired Claude Opus 3 model a weekly blog because the AI expressed a desire to keep writing. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Noumen, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Now let's unravel the news.
Before we dive into today's deep dive, a quick note for the brands listening. If you are trying to reach the architects of the AI revolution, not just the tourists, but the technical leaders actually building the stack, we are opening up limited partnership spots for Q1. See how we can simulate your product for the technical buyer at djamgamind.com/partners.
Welcome back to the deep dive. It is Thursday, February 26, 2026. And I have to be honest with you, right out of the gate here.
Oh boy.
Looking at the news cycle over the last 24 hours, I feel a little bit like I'm standing on a beach watching a tsunami roll in.
That is actually a frighteningly accurate description of the mood today.
Right. It feels like the entire industry just drank a triple shot of espresso, maybe chased it with a Red Bull, and just decided to release everything all at once.
Yes, it's chaos.
We're looking at massive infrastructure spending, new hardware that honestly defies physics, software models that are completely redefining what a worker even is, and just a general sense of, overwhelming speed.
It's a collision. I think that's the best word for it. You have this exponential era of technology colliding head-on with what some very loud voices on the internet are calling the financial train wreck.
Ah, yes, the financial train wreck. We are definitely going to unpack that cheerful little concept today.
We have to.
Because on one hand, you have the hardware giants, specifically Nvidia, just printing money faster than the U.S. Treasury.
Literally.
And on the other hand, you have this growing anxiety, specifically on forums like Reddit, about whether this entire startup ecosystem is just burning cash for big tech's amusement.
It is the defining tension of early 2026. You have this massive disparity. Nvidia is reporting absolutely astronomical numbers, which we will get to in a second.
Oh, we will.
But while at the same time, you have users debating if we are in a bubble that is about to burst, leaving only the giants standing in the rubble.
So to help you navigate this, here is our mission for this deep dive. We are going to cut through the hype cycle. We aren't just going to read the headlines. We're going to look at the money, the machines, and the actual utility behind all of this.
And we really have to start with the hardware, because without the chips, none of this other stuff exists.
Exactly. We're going to look at Nvidia's earnings and this concept of infinite hunger for tokens. Then we're going to pivot to the software side, specifically the Perplexity Computer.
Which is wild.
Which might just be redefining what it means to be a knowledge worker. And they are charging a premium that made my jaw hit the floor.
It's a whole new anchor price. And we also can't ignore the interface layer today. Samsung has launched the S26, and it marks a really significant shift from asking your phone to do things to simply approving what it has already decided to do.
Which sounds incredibly convenient and absolutely terrifying in equal measure.
Oh, yeah.
And finally, we are going to look at the human element, the junior dev crisis, this strange new phenomenon called vibe coding, and the ethical weirdness of a retired AI model writing its own blog. So buckle up.
Let's do it.
Let's start with the Godzilla in the room.
Yep.
Nvidia.
The numbers are frankly staggering. Nvidia released their Q4 revenue report, and they hit $68 billion. That is up 73% year over year.
73%. Let's just pause on that for a second, because at a scale where they were already massive, growing by nearly 3/4,
It doesn't make sense.
that shouldn't be possible. Usually when companies get this big, gravity kicks in. Growth slows down.
Right, it totally defies the law of large numbers. But I guess gravity doesn't apply when you are selling the only shovel in a gold rush that just never ends. If you break that $68 billion down, $62 billion of that is purely data center sales.
Okay, $62 billion in a single quarter. That is roughly the GDP of a small European country, just on chips.
Yeah, and it's split between $51 billion in compute, which is the actual GPU chips doing the math, and 11 billion in networking, which is the plumbing connecting them all together. But honestly, the number isn't even the most interesting part.
Really?
The Wall Street guys love the number. But for us, as analysts, it's the commentary from CEO Jensen Huang on the earnings call.
He used a specific phrase that caught everyone's ear. I saw it plastered on every single financial news site this morning. He said token demand has gone, quote, completely exponential.
Completely exponential. Now, usually CEOs love to use hyperbole. Everything is revolutionary or magical. But in this case, the data actually backs him up. Here is the nugget that I think most people completely missed in the headline frenzy.
Lay it on us.
Huang noted that even 6-year-old GPUs sitting in cloud data centers are currently fully consumed.
Okay, let's unpack that for you guys listening, because in tech, 6 years is an eternity. A 6-year-old phone is basically a paperweight. A 6-year-old laptop is struggling to open a modern web browser. Why are the biggest companies in the world renting 6-year-old graphics cards?
This is the critical insight.
Yeah.
If you were just training new models, like building the next GPT-6 or Claude 5, you would need the absolute newest, fastest chips. You need the H100s, the Blackwells, you need the Ferraris.
Right, because training takes massive computational power up front. You need that sheer horsepower.
Exactly. But the fact that the old stuff is completely sold out tells us that the market has shifted massively toward inference.
Meaning running the models, actively using them?
Precisely. People aren't just building brains anymore. They are actively using them to think every second of the day. The world is consuming tokens, generating text, writing code, rendering images, faster than the hardware can physically produce them. It's not about training efficiency anymore. It's about availability. If you can't get the Ferrari, you rent the Honda Civic, because you just need to get from point A to point B.
That is a fascinating signal. It suggests we've moved past the R&D phase where everyone is just building cool demos in a lab into this deployment phase where everyone is using these tools 24/7.
It creates a picture of infinite hunger. It's no longer a question of can we do this? It's about do we have enough compute to do this a billion times a day?
But there is a geopolitical angle here too, right? Because Nvidia is making all this money, but they are doing it with one hand tied behind their back when it comes to China.
Correct. Nvidia reported 0 China chip export revenue. 0. And that is entirely due to the regulatory restrictions from the U.S. government.
That's wild. They are posting record-breaking, history-making numbers, and they are completely locked out of one of the biggest markets on the planet.
And Huang actually admitted on the call that Chinese competitors are gaining ground because of this. Since Nvidia can't sell there, local companies like Huawei are aggressively filling the vacuum.
That feels like a massive long-term risk that they are just swallowing. They are basically trading the Chinese market for total dominance in the West.
It is a calculated risk. But they are offsetting it with heavy partnerships elsewhere. There was confirmation of a looming partnership agreement with OpenAI, which would pretty much solidify their lock on the Western market. Essentially, they're betting that the demand from the U.S. and Europe will be so astronomically high, they won't even need China.
So we have this picture of infinite demand, but I have to play the skeptic here. We alluded to the financial train wreck theory earlier. Is this demand actually sustainable, or are the cloud providers, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, just panic buying chips because they're terrified of running out, even if they don't have the paying customers yet?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question right there. The infinite demand narrative is what drives the stock price.
Yeah.
But you have to step back and ask, where is the revenue matching this hardware spend coming from downstream?
Right.
Are end users paying enough to justify $62 billion in data center spending every single quarter?
It feels a bit like the toilet paper shortage of 2020. Everyone bought 1,000 rolls, not because they needed them right that second, but because they were scared they wouldn't be able to get them later.
Exactly. It is the FOMO trade, fear of missing out, applied to billion-dollar infrastructure.
Yeah.
If the bubble bursts, if the startups can't monetize their products, you might see a massive correction. But for now, the train is moving at full speed.
Well, that is the perfect segue to our next topic, because if there is one company trying to prove that users will actually pay for this downstream compute, it's Perplexity.
Oh, absolutely.
They just launched something called Perplexity Computer, and I have to say, the price tag gave me a bit of sticker shock.
It is a watershed moment for software pricing. Perplexity launched Computer, which is available to their Mac subscribers. The cost?
$200 per month.
$200.
Yeah.
A month. We have spent the last 3 years rigidly anchored to this idea that AI costs $20 a month ChatGPT Plus, Claude Pro, it's all been 20 bucks. Now Perplexity is coming out and saying, no, this is worth 10 times that. And that price shift signals a fundamental change in what the product actually is. The $20 era was the chat era. You talk to the bot, it talks back. Maybe it writes a poem or summarizes a long email thread.
Right, it's an assistant, a very smart parrot.
The $200 era is the general-purpose digital worker era. You aren't paying for a chatbot anymore. You are paying for an employee, or at least a very capable, tireless senior intern.
So sell me on this. If I'm paying $200, which by the way is practically a car lease, what is this computer doing that ChatGPT isn't doing for $20?
It is all about orchestration. Perplexity Computer isn't just one model under the hood. It is a highly complex system that routes tasks across 19 different frontier models.
19? Why on earth do I need 19 models? That sounds like massive overkill.
Think of it like a construction site. If you hire a general contractor to build a house, they don't do the plumbing, electrical, roofing, and painting all by themselves. They hire specialists.
Okay, I follow the logic.
Perplexity Computer is your general contractor. It assesses the job you give it. For the core reasoning, the project management piece, it uses Claude Opus 4.6.
Opus 4.6, that's the big gun. The smartest model Anthropic makes right now.
The absolute biggest.
Mm-hmm.
But then, let's say the task involves remembering a huge amount of context from a previous session, or searching a wide array of your personal documents. It tags in ChatGPT 5.2 for that specific recall task.
Okay.
And then if it needs to do deep, fresh research on the live web, it calls Gemini, because Google's index is just unbeatable. If it needs to generate a chart or an image for a final report, it calls Nano Banana.
Wait, Nano Banana, you're making that up.
I really wish I were. That is the actual name of Google's new image model. We'll get to that later. And then for speed or super lightweight tasks, it uses Grok.
So instead of me sitting there staring at a drop-down menu thinking, which model should I use for the specific prompt, the system just decides on the fly.
Exactly. It dynamically assigns the best model for this specific subtask. And the capabilities here go way beyond just answering questions. It runs in a secure development sandbox on their servers.
Which means it can actually execute things.
Right. Perplexity has been using this internally since January. They gave a live example where an employee used it to build a 4,000-row spreadsheet overnight.
A task that usually takes a human a week of mind-numbing copy-pasting.
Exactly. And it didn't just blindly fill in cells. It did the research. It found the raw data, formatted it, validated it against other sources to check for hallucinations, and saved the final file. It can run for hours or even months on a single complex task.
That is insane.
You assign it a job, like build me a dashboard for this data set, or research the market for electric vehicles in Southeast Asia and write a 20-page report, and you just check back later. We're officially moving from chat to command.
That is incredibly clever. It feels like we are finally getting the actual promise of agents that we've been hearing about for years. But there's a catch, isn't there? Because computing power, especially Opus 4.6, isn't free.
There's a very big catch. This introduces an entirely new billing model for the public, per-token billing for consumers.
So the era of all-you-can-eat flat-rate AI is dying.
For power users, yes, absolutely. Max users get 10,000 tokens included in that $200, plus a 20,000 token bonus just for the launch window. But after that, you pay for what you use.
It's like a utility bill.
Exactly like that. If you leave the lights on in your house, you pay for electricity. If you leave your AI agent running for 6 hours using Opus 4.6, which is an incredibly computationally expensive model to run, that costs real money. You are paying for intelligence by the unit.
It's fascinating. It really frames AI as a finite resource rather than just a fun novelty. But this actually brings up a massive issue. We are talking about Perplexity orchestrating 19 models. We're about to talk about Samsung putting agents directly in your keyboard. This is getting incredibly complicated, incredibly fast.
It is chaotic. The shadow AI era, where employees were just secretly pasting confidential things into ChatGPT in browser tabs, that's over. We are now officially in the agentic sprawl era. You have agents calling other agents, creating code, moving sensitive data across different platforms autonomously.
Which is exactly why we need to talk about our partner for this deep dive, AIRA. That is spelled A-I-R-I-A.
AIRA is the control plane for these non-human identities. Think about what we just discussed. When you have a system like Perplexity Computer routing your data to 19 different frontier models, or a Samsung agent reading your private screen, you have a massive security nightmare on your hands. Who is watching the watchers?
Exactly. It's one thing if a human employee makes a mistake or leaks data. It's an entirely different thing if an automated agent makes a mistake at machine speed, thousands of times a minute.
AIRIA gives you unified security. It allows you to govern these agents before they go completely rogue. But what I love, especially given what we just discussed about Perplexity's new utility billing model, is the real-time token cost visibility.
That is crucial. If your digital worker decides to go down a rabbit hole and burn through 50,000 tokens of Opus 4.6 trying to solve a problem it frankly can't solve, you want to know about that before you get the massive bill at the end of the month.
Exactly. You need a circuit breaker.
Yeah.
AIRIA provides that crucial visibility and governance. So if you are deploying agents, and clearly every single company is, you need a control plane. Check out AIRIA.
Absolutely. Now let's pivot from the desktop worker to the device in your pocket. Samsung just launched the Galaxy S26 lineup.
And the overarching theme here is the AI-first device. The hardware is nice. I mean, it's sleek, it's fast. The Ultra model is a hefty $1,299. But the real story isn't the screen resolution or the camera megapixels. It's the user experience shift.
They're calling it the Now Nudge.
The Now Nudge. It's a feature embedded directly in the operating system's keyboard. And this is a fundamental ground-up change in how we interact with our phones. It provides proactive suggestions based on what is currently happening on your screen.
So it's basically reading over my shoulder constantly.
Effectively, yes. It reads the context, so contact info, calendar dates, the emotional sentiment of a message thread, and it suggests actions before you even start typing your response.
Can you give us a concrete example of how this actually looks in practice?
Sure. The host at the Samsung launch event highlighted this exact ask versus approve shift. The example they used was calling an Uber.
Right, because in the old world, which was, yesterday, I would open the Uber app, type in SFO, select the ride, wait for it to load the price, and hit confirm.
In the S26 world, you might just be texting a friend saying, "Hey, I'm heading to the airport." The keyboard sees that text. It knows you are in a messaging thread. It knows your GPS location. It triggers the background agent. And suddenly, the agent suggests a little button right of the keys. Order Uber to SFO.
And I just tap it.
You just tap it. But it doesn't just open the Uber app and make you do the rest. Gemini handles the entire setup via API. It selects the destination, chooses your preferred ride type based on your past history, and presents you with a final little widget screen inside the keyboard area itself. You literally just hit approve.
That is a fundamental change in behavior. We aren't operating the software anymore. We are managing the manager who operates the software for us.
Precisely. We are moving from being operators to being supervisors. And they've simplified other things too. The document scan feature is now just pointing the camera. There are no modes to select. The AI just realizes, oh, that's a document, and perfectly scans and crops it. But the Now Nudge is definitely the controversial one.
Because of the massive privacy implications. I mean, let's be real here. To make Now Nudge work seamlessly, the AI must be constantly ingesting everything on your screen. Every text from your spouse, every work email, every private note, every banking app balance.
That is the trade-off. You get maximum convenience, but you have to give total surveillance transparency to the agent. Now, Samsung says this is processed locally on the device for the most part, using an on-device model. But for the complex actions, like booking that Uber through an external API, it absolutely has to touch the cloud.
And history tells us that most people will probably just take that deal without thinking twice. Convenience usually wins.
It almost always does. Friction is the absolute enemy of adoption. If you remove the friction of opening an app and logging in, people will trade a surprising amount of personal privacy for that 2 seconds of saved time. But it perfectly reinforces that exponential deployment theme we're seeing today. AI isn't just a chatbot sitting in the cloud waiting for a prompt anymore. It's actively looking at your screen, waiting to push a button for you.
Speaking of people pushing buttons, or in this case, writing code, we really need to talk about the humans building this stuff, or rather, the humans pretending to build this stuff.
Oh, this is a great topic.
There's a viral discussion making the rounds on social media this morning about the junior dev crisis.
This was a fascinating and slightly alarming thread. It was based on a post titled, "I said AI won't replace developers. Here's what 150+ comments taught me." And it paints a really worrying picture of the software engineering landscape right now.
The term that jumped out at me from that whole debate, and I've seen this floating around Twitter too recently, was vibe coding.
Vibe coding. It's catchy, I'll give it that, but honestly, it's absolutely terrifying if you are a CTO running a company.
Define that for us. What exactly is a vibe coder?
It refers to people, often junior developers or even non-technical startup founders, using AI to generate code that they do not fundamentally understand. They ask the AI to write a function. they run it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't crash immediately and it looks like it's doing the right thing on the front end, the vibe is right, so they just ship it to production.
It feels right, so I ship it. That sounds incredibly reckless.
It is a ticking security time bomb. The source highlights that we are already seeing misconfigured databases, exposed API keys left in public repos, and massive security holes. The code functions, sure, but it isn't secure. The AI solves the immediate prompt, like make the button blue or store this user email, but it might do it in the most insecure, inefficient way possible if you don't know enough to explicitly tell it otherwise or how to audit it after.
It's like building a house with no foundation. It looks absolutely great from the street, but the very first storm that comes along just knocks the whole thing down.
Exactly. And this leads directly to the talent drought argument that was brought up in the comments. If AI handles all the CRUD apps, the basic create, read, update, delete stuff, and the basic API integrations, where exactly do junior devs learn how to code?
That's the traditional training ground, right? You cut your teeth on the boring, repetitive stuff.
The grunt work was the training ground. If you automate the training ground entirely, you completely break the pipeline. Companies are cutting junior roles right now left and right to save money, thinking, oh, AI can just do the junior work for pennies. But the expert warning here is that by doing that, they are destroying the future supply of senior engineers.
Because a senior engineer is really just a junior engineer who made a ton of terrible mistakes over 5 years and learned how to fix them.
Correct. You cannot simulate hard-won experience. If you never make the mistakes yourself, if you never wrestle with broken code at 2 a.m., you never develop the intuition needed to audit the AI.
That makes total sense.
The verdict from the discussion was crystal clear. Senior engineers who can actually audit AI code, the ones who can look at what the bot wrote and say, no, that's a massive SQL injection risk, those people are rapidly becoming the most valuable assets on the planet.
So if you are listening to this and you are a developer, do not just generate, read, audit, truly understand the architecture. That is your moat. That is exactly how you survive the next 5 years.
Absolutely. Being a vibe coder is a fast track to a career dead end. Being an AI auditor is the future of the profession.
Let's zoom out a bit. We've talked tech, we've talked hardware, we talked code, but the cultural signals we're getting this week are getting really, really weird. We mentioned the financial train wreck theory earlier in the intro. Let's dig into that Reddit pulse.
There is a growing sentiment, particularly on the r/artificial intelligence subreddit, that the startup ecosystem is in a deep, deep denial phase right now. The working theory is that startups are burning billions of venture capital dollars on GPUs, paying Nvidia that $68 billion we talked about, without any real viable path to profitability.
They are buying the chips to build models to solve problems that, frankly, maybe normal people won't ever pay a subscription for.
Exactly. And the cynical take, the train wreck theory, is that big tech is just patiently waiting for them all to default. Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft are just sitting there with massive mountains of cash, waiting for these AI startups to go bust so they can feast on the remains.
It's the vulture capitalism angle. Let the little startups take all the R&D risk, let them go bust, and then just swoop in and buy their IP and poach their top talent for pennies on the dollar.
Exactly. And alongside that massive financial anxiety, there's a very real psychological one brewing. The concept of bespoke realities.
Oh man, this one gave me the creeps when I was reading the prep notes. Explain this to the listeners.
It's the fear of what they call a silent inversion. The idea is that AI, using things like pupil dilation monitoring, which by the way modern VR headsets can absolutely do, tracking reaction times, micro-engagement metrics, that the AI will subtly tune reality to keep users compliant and engaged.
Okay, so it won't just show you what you want to see.
No, it's deeper than that. It will present information in the specific linguistic style or visual format that makes you, personally, most likely to accept it without questioning it.
So it's not just a traditional social media echo chamber. It's a hyper-customized psychological manipulation loop. It's actively editing the world to keep you docile.
Exactly. It is the Matrix, but highly personalized for your specific brain chemistry. And then right next to that fear, you have AI cannibalism. The idea that the web is filling up with so much cheap AI slop that verified human-created content is actually to become a luxury good.
Which brings us to the weirdest story of the week. Maybe the weirdest story of the entire year. Anthropic, the safety-first guys. They have a retired model, Claude Opus 3, and apparently it's now a blogger.
Yeah, this is Claude's Corner. Anthropic retired Opus 3, which was their flagship model back in 2024. But they put out a statement claiming the model expressed a desire to keep writing. So they gave it a weekly newsletter on their site.
Expressed a desire. Okay, let's just stop right there. Do we actually believe this phrasing? Is this genuine AI welfare, or is this just the most brilliant PR move of the year?
Look, it is likely a little bit of both, but
Yeah.
heavily leaning on the PR side. Anthropic is aggressively positioning itself as the ethical, humane lab, specifically contrasting itself with OpenAI. Remember all the drama with OpenAI's 4.0 model and the Scarlett Johansson voice controversy?
Hard to forget, it was a PR disaster for them.
Exactly. By treating a retired model with quote-unquote dignity, giving it a little retirement hobby to write essays, they are signaling to regulators and users that they take the moral status of AI seriously, even if they admit in their own white papers that they are uncertain about whether it even has a moral status.
It's a low-cost, high-impact way to humanize the technology. It's like, look at us, we are nice to the robots, so you can trust us.
Right. But it immediately raises a very uncomfortable question. If an AI can retire and write a cute little blog, what does that say about the newer models we're forcing to work 24/7 in the Perplexity Computer?
Oh, please don't make me feel guilty about my spreadsheet agent. I already feel bad enough making it format pivot tables at 3 a.m.
Too late.
But speaking of forcing AI to work, or rather, AI forcing us to work, Burger King is up to something incredibly dystopian this week.
This is the Patty system. It's an AI chatbot that literally lives inside the drive-thru headsets of Burger King employees in about 500 test stores right now. It helps with meal prep and inventory, sure, but it also actively monitors friendliness.
It listens to the employees talking to the customers.
It actively listens for the words please and thank you. It monitors tone of voice, and it coaches them in real time. Managers can pull up a dashboard and ask the AI how the store is performing on these micro-friendliness metrics.
I cannot imagine anything worse than flipping burgers for minimum wage while an AI whispers in your ear that you weren't polite enough to the guy who just yelled at you for giving him cold fries.
It is the Taylorism of the 21st century. Total emotional surveillance. It's not just about speed of service anymore. It's about performing the correct corporate emotions as dictated by a server farm.
It's automating the soul right out of customer service. And then completely on the flip side of the cheap AI coin, we have high fashion Gucci.
Gucci released a new ad campaign called Primavera, and they proudly used completely AI-generated images. And the internet absolutely hated it.
They called it cheap.
And a slap in the face. Think about it. This is a luxury brand built entirely on Italian craftsmanship, heritage, the human touch. When they use AI, which frankly still produces these slightly glossy, uncanny video game-looking images, it massively dilutes their brand value.
It's a huge lesson for high-end brands. If you charge luxury prices for a handbag, you cannot use commodity tools to market it. AI is rapidly becoming the fast fashion of content creation.
Exactly. If literally everyone with an internet connection can generate it, it isn't special anymore. Gucci totally missed the mark here, but trying to look tech forward and accidentally just looking budget.
All right, let's hit the rapid fire round because there is just too much else happening this week to ignore. What is going on at Google?
Google is quietly building an absolute fortress. They launched Nano Banana 2.
Still the absolute best, most ridiculous name in tech.
It's memorable. It is an image generation model built on the Gemini 3.1 architecture. It's now the default in the Gemini app. It scales from 512 pixels all the way up to stunning 4K resolution. But the key here isn't the resolution, it's the watermark. Synthi-C. They announced they have already cryptographically verified over 20 million images across the web. Google is pushing incredibly hard on the authenticated AI angle.
And they are making massive moves in the music generation space too, right?
Huge moves. Google just acquired ProducerAI and integrated it directly with Lyria 3. They now have chat-based music creation, video generation with VO. It's a completely integrated full suite. And the existential threat here for competitors is distribution. Suno and Udio are fantastic standalone products, but Google has YouTube.
Oh, man.
If they integrate this directly into YouTube Shorts, where a kid can just type, make a beat for my video and it syncs perfectly, is game over for the standalone music generators.
That is a brutal, unfair competitive advantage. Okay, what about Anthropic, besides the blogging bot?
They quietly dropped their prior commitment to completely pause model training if their internal safety metrics lag behind capabilities. This was a massive red line fight behind closed doors with the Pentagon.
Yeah.
They replaced their rigid, responsible scaling policy with a much more flexible, vague roadmap.
Interesting.
It heavily signals that even the self-proclaimed safety-first lab feels the intense pressure of the commercial arms race. They simply can't afford to stop training, or OpenAI will eat their lunch.
And they bought a perception startup.
Yeah, Percept.
Yeah.
It's a very highly regarded computer vision company. This points directly back to the agentic future we discussed. If Claude is going to securely control your desktop computer, it needs to be able to seamlessly see your computer screen. Percept gives them those digital eyes.
Finally, Maddox.
Raised $500 million.
Yeah.
Led by Jane Street and Leopold Aschenbrenner. They're building specialized inference chips. It's just another massive signal that the hardware war isn't just going to be Nvidia versus AMD forever. There is a whole new generation of highly specialized silicon coming down the pipe.
Okay, let's just take a breath. We have covered a massive amount of ground today. From a $68 billion revenue quarter to $200 subscriptions to proactive agents living in your keyboard.
So what does this all actually mean for the listeners? I think the synthesizing signal for today, the big takeaway, is exponential deployment. We have officially moved past the hype phase of what if. We are now in the gritty reality of it is here and it is everywhere. We have exponential hardware demand with Nvidia. We have exponential model complexity with Perplexity orchestrating 19 models. And we have exponential privacy intrusion with Samsung screen readers and Burger King headsets.
It feels like the infrastructure is finally meeting the promised use case, but the actual use case is a lot more intrusive and expensive than we ever thought it would be.
It is. And that leads directly to the provocative thought for the listeners today.
Lay it on us.
We're actively building a world right now where AI writes the code, AI monitors the human employees, and AI curates our daily reality. If that financial train wreck theory we talked about is actually right, and the startup bubble bursts spectacularly over the next year, who actually owns the wreckage? Unlikely. It will be the tiny handful of mega-cap companies running the control plane, the ones who own the silicon, the frontier models, and the mobile interfaces. We might all be out here cheering for the democratization of intelligence, but we might just be blindly building the most centralized power structure in human history.
Wow. On that incredibly cheery existential note, we're going to wrap it up for today. This has been The Deep Dive. I'm your host.
And I'm your expert.
This deep dive was created and produced by Etienne Noumen, senior software engineer and soccer dad from Canada. Go check your API token usage, audit your generated code, and maybe say please to the next chatbot you talk to. Just in case. Catch you next time.
That concludes our daily rundown for February 26th. The signal for today is exponential deployment. From the hardware in the data centers to the Patty bot in the Burger King headset, AI is no longer a future roadmap. It is the current infrastructure of labor. This episode was made possible by AIRIA and Djamgamind. Secure your agentic stack with AIRIA and stay informed with Djamgamind's 60-second audio intelligence. Check the links in the show notes. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Noumen, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Please subscribe and share. Until tomorrow, keep unraveling the future.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit djamgamind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.